That's fine. So what we will do today is we will go ahead from the same place where we left yesterday on the self-paced course on online teaching. So once again I will share my screen, and today we will try to see a few more details of what we talked about yesterday. This is already there as part of that course material, but I just want to walk through it quickly, uh, hoping and assuming that most of you have already seen it. I mean, 85% of you said that, almost 85% said that you've seen it already. You've gone through at least some part of the material. Okay. So this is the section that we quickly raced through yesterday, that what are the principles for effective online instruction, and we will actually go through each one of them a little bit in more depth today. Let me just quickly recapitulate what we said at the end of yesterday's session, that often there is a lot of good material already available out there, and instead of saying that I'm going to reinvent the wheel and I'm going to uh, sort of redo everything, I think the best way is to curate, and we will see exactly what curation means. Curation doesn't mean just providing a link to an existing recording somewhere. Curation means you have to do some extra work to, I mean, the material may already be recorded, but you still have to sort of adapt that material for the way in which you wanted to teach. Okay, so curate before you create is kind of saying that if the material has been excellently prepared by somebody already out there, let's make use of it. Making use doesn't mean just providing the link. We will talk about what curation really means. Okay, actually it's written kind of here. It's not just pointing students to content from other sources. You have to show how it fits into one's course plan, create activities around it. We will actually look at this. In fact, we will look at an example of curation in this course itself. Okay, so that way it should be clear to you. We've talked about this: keep videos short, insert reflection points, and I really would like to hear from participants here about whether you have tried this out and what impact you might have seen in student attention, in student engagement. Uh, Give practice immediately and frequently, not at the end of an entire chapter, maybe. After each 10-minute video that you're recording, there should be some practice questions, not necessarily the most difficult brain teasers, but just to keep the students engaged. Providing diverse resources and incentivizing access. We will talk about this also a bit more today. Peer learning, allowing students to sort of discuss with each other and responding to students' actions. Okay, and here is a table to sort of keep in mind, that this is kind of the mapping between when I'm in a class, I'm giving lectures, that has now got to be translated into small chunks of recorded videos, what we call learning dialogues. uh, Exercises, practice problems after each learning dialogue, resources, references, properly incentivized for students to go through them, and discussions, interactions with focus questions. So we will actually look through all of these today. Okay, so the first thing is, when you're preparing material for pre-recorded material. So we have already discussed this yesterday, that really the recommended way of teaching online is to have maybe 2/3 of your interaction pre-recorded and 1/3 of your interaction through live sessions. And so preparing this pre-recorded materials is very important, and it has also got to be done very carefully. There are multiple pitfalls along the way when you're preparing recorded material, and we will discuss some of these along the way. Okay, so the first thing is chunking. Chunking means that you don't talk in one long monologue for 40 minutes or 1 hour or whatever it is. You break it up. Okay, but how do you break it up? Suppose I'm I started speaking maybe in this session around 10 minutes back, and I'm this is of course a live interaction session, so there are questions from your side, there are comments from my side and all of that. But if I were to sort of do a pre-recording of this, I will have to plan beforehand. I can't do this on the fly. I will have to plan beforehand that at what point has the breaks have to be there. At what points can we naturally chunk it? It does not make sense to sort of break a recording. Suppose you're teaching, this workshop is about teaching programming. Suppose you're teaching programming and you're teaching maybe iteration construct. So you're teaching for loops or while loops or something. So it really would not make sense to, sort of, you're explaining a program and maybe you have gone through part of the program and you realize that, oh, it is already 10 minutes, and you say, okay, fine, I'll stop it right now. Right? You've shown a program, you're explaining the program, you've gone through maybe half or one third of the program, and you realize that it's already 10 minutes since you started, and you say that, okay, now I'm going to stop right now, 10 minutes are over, and I'm going to start the next video, at the point where I stopped. This is really not effective. You have to find natural, logical points for breaking. If you're explaining a program, you either stop it before you started explaining the program, or you stop it after you have explained at least one module of the program, one logical chunk of the program. You cannot sort of break in between and expect students to sort of carry over, because what you have to remember is that students may not see one recording and the next recording in quick succession. A student may see one recording, take a break, and that break could be as long as, maybe a couple of hours, and or maybe even the next day, and then start with the next recording. And so if you have stopped in the middle of something, that and starting from there again next time, that entire context is lost. Okay, so it's important to plan beforehand how to do chunking, and there is a very, very nice sort of do it yourself kind of thing that I'm going to show you over here, which, so, once again, I expect all of you to go and look at this, it's really excellently prepared recorded material. Professor Sridhara Iyer, our colleague, who has recently been recognized as an outstanding educator in computing education in India. And he's explaining how chunking should be done, at what are the logical places for chunking. So I'm not going to play that video here in the interest of time, but this is very, very highly recommended. All of you should see this. Okay. What I'm going to do here, however, is that, so here are some guidelines, and we'll actually see a kind of do-it-yourself thing. So what are these guidelines saying? They're saying that if you are going to explain some conceptual knowledge, right, in a class, when we are trying to go and teach, let us say, iteration construct in programming, typically a 40-minute or 45-minute or 1 hour class we will start off with a description of the conceptual things. What is iteration? Why do we need to do iteration? What are the constructs that we need to do iteration? Then we will say, okay, let us try to solve a problem. Maybe let us try to sum up the elements of an array using an iterative construct. And then we might say, later on, you're also going to see things like maybe how to do sorting using iteration construct, how to do searching using iteration constructs. And then maybe, at the end of the class, I'm talking about a 40-minute or a 1 hour class, you might give the students some exercises. So this is your usual 40-minute class. But when you're teaching online, it is absolutely, the wrong thing to pack all of this into one recording. So as is written here, if you're talking about an explanation lecture on some conceptual knowledge, create one, maybe multiple LEDs for those, breaking at logical points. LEDs are, once again, learning dialogues. So these are videos with reflection spots inserted in between. If you are trying to show whatever concept you have learned, maybe how to sum up the elements of an array, then create a separate, so this is learning by design. This is an activity oriented thing. You say, okay, let us do this. Ask the students to do this, right? If you're referring to material from an external resource, maybe saying, later on, we are going to see how sorting and searching is done using iteration. You create, this learning trajectories, learning experience trajectories. And, if you want students to discuss their ideas, interact with each other, respond, all of these things, all of these 4 bullets happen together in a 40-minute or 45-minute or 1 hour class. All of these things happen together. And as teachers, we sort of steer, guide our students through all of these. But when you're doing online, you cannot and you must not pack all of these into the same recording. It's absolutely counterproductive packing all of these into the same recording. These have to be broken up and appropriately presented to the students. Okay. Now, you know, interestingly, for example, this is a course that we are trying to go through. I'm trying to walk you through, and you see that over here there is a reflection spot. I have talked about a few things, and then there is a question. There's a self-check question on chunking, right? So it says your colleague comes to you for an advice on how to convert a 45-minute lecture in a single topic into LEDs. So what will you recommend? Okay. So anybody wants to volunteer? What you will recommend?
Sir, C.
Okay,
Identify logical pause points after every 10 minutes and create multiple LEDs.
correct. That would definitely be a very good way to go about. It's certainly not okay to have a 45-minute LED. Split the lecture into two LEDs around 20 minutes each. No, this 20 minute is way above what repeated studies have shown where the attention starts to drop off. It's around 8 to 10 minutes after which attention starts dropping off. Okay, when people are seeing recorded lectures, so it is C. But you see that in this course we are inserting reflection points, and reflection points could involve questions which are as simple as this. These are not like very difficult, very deep conceptual questions. It's just saying that, did you really go through what was being said earlier? If you went through, you should be able to do this, and then you can move ahead. Okay. Now what we will do is we will see, let me just check this here. Yeah, so we will see how to do the creation of the LED. Okay. Now then, this business about curation of content, right? So as I said, curation is not just pointing. Curation is when you're trying to find whether you really needed to record everything that you wanted to say, whether somebody has already done an excellent job of it, and then can you use it in an appropriate way. And this does not mean just giving a link to that YouTube video or wherever that video is hosted to your students and say, please go and look ahead at that. I have seen this happen. I'm I'm sort of trying to say some of these things to you in the role of an instructor today, but my 12-year-old studies in a school, and over the entire last 9 months I have been seeing how teachers, they're trying their best trying to teach online, but in a lot of cases teachers just don't realize that just by giving a link to some half an hour video somewhere, or even to a 15-minute video somewhere prepared by somebody else, it doesn't really serve the purpose. I mean, the video may be good, but the video has to be curated. And we will talk about what we mean by this curation before you can sort of ask your students to sort of use it for explaining the concept or whatever topic you wanted to explain. Okay. And these are things that we have talked about, that this is very tempting to say that, well, I teach it in the best possible way and nobody teaches better than me. I mean, all of us are teachers, and I think all of us definitely teach in our own unique ways. But it is very tempting to say that, no, the way I teach it is the best possible way and I'm going to create my own video. But as I said, creating good video is very, very different from teaching very well in a face-to-face live class. So teaching is not the same as creating good video. There are so many things that are involved in creating a good video. It takes a lot of time and effort. And so, the right thing to do is to see that, yes, I may need to create a video if needed, but if it is available, if I can curate something, I should go ahead and try to curate. Okay. So what do we mean by digital curation? So so here I think we are actually going to demonstrate this. So here we are talking about curation to you, and we are actually going to see a 1 minute video created by somebody else on curation. Okay. And it is perfectly okay to use this, because what I'm saying here is, I'm saying that you don't need to watch the entire video that I'm going to point to over here. You just need to watch it from 1 minute 42 seconds to 2 minute 40 seconds. That is the relevant part for what I want to discuss here. There may be a lot of other things in that video, but if I just point you to that video, then you will have no other option but to go and see the whole video, and maybe not all of that is exactly what was relevant for what I wanted to teach you. But if I say that, well, okay, here is a video and there's a part of the video that is relevant and here is how it is relevant, then I'm doing curation. So this is a kind of, the video is an example of content curation, since it was not created by the course team, but we are using it within the course. And what is the curation aspect here? I'm actually pointing you to the exact duration in the video that you have to look at, and what it relates to with regards to what we are talking. So let us click here and let us see. Actually, I can perhaps play this directly over here. Okay. And see, this is a digital curation thing, but I don't want to go and see all of this. I want to go to 1 minute 42 seconds. Okay. And I'm going to see this exactly for 1 minute. That's what it says. So of course I can. Critically reflecting on whether to include artifacts. Reorganizing artifacts based on how you wanted to present it. Okay. And right, we're going to stop it here and we are going to come out of this. So are all of you with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so all of us saw that video, and this is an example of curation on a video. I mean, there was a, whatever, you can see the 3 minute 19-second video that was available, and of course it's going to talk about a lot of things, but for the discussion that we are currently doing, uh, we can just point you to a specific 1 minute part of the video. We can even say that, well, okay, you're going to see this part of the video, and then we can provide a little context before it in the text, saying that, okay, first go through this, then see this part of the video, and then let's come and discuss this other thing. Then we can switch over to another video. So what I'm saying is that it's very important to not jump to creating your own material if that material has already been created excellently elsewhere. But it also does not mean that you just provide a link to the YouTube video and that's it, your job is done. Because typically a video created by somebody else, even for the same topic that you're teaching, may not be exactly the way you wanted it to be taught. So you pick up the parts from there that match the way you wanted it to be taught and then show it. Okay. So, and then there are, once again, I will not be able to go through all of these in detail. You're required, and there are lots of resources that are available, open educational resources, from where you can take material, right? So as I said, how to utilize curated content, decide which part of the curated content is pertinent. It is not the case that an entire video prepared by somebody is pertinent for what you are trying to teach, uh, right? Identify portions that the student should go through, specify them clearly, state how it fits, provide a context that you are teaching something, and this is where I want you to see this 1 minute clip from this video. And then after that, you create activities for students to assimilate. And then, of course, after that, you can have a real-time discussion. Okay. So, and then there are several technology tools which are also available. And this does provide a very nice listing of tools if you want to do that. But even otherwise, if you have found a good YouTube video, go through it yourself, find out which part is important, pertinent, provide the context leading into that, ask students to maybe just look at that part, and then provide some activity which helps them in assimilation. Okay. Now, okay, let me stop here and let me ask: are there any questions about what we mean by curating a video? If there are any questions, you can raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any hands raised. So hopefully this is clear. And in fact, as I said, please go through this material, excellently prepared material. It just tells you clearly. And I mean, we just demonstrated it live, right? I am using a curated video in trying to teach you about curation. Okay. Now let's come to how are we going to create these videos, and this is also very very important. We have already looked at some of these yesterday, that learning dialogue, reflection spot, uh, you know what should be the format of the led, and what are the technology tools that are available for this purpose. So once again, our colleague Professor Sridhar Iyer, an excellent you know video recording he has put up about what is a learning dialogue, what is a reflection spot. We have discussed these briefly yesterday. We are also seeing these as we are going through this course. But I want to sort of point you to the format of the learning dialogue. And there are really multiple formats that one can use. And you know and you would appreciate now that you are a student in this course. You would appreciate that when we mix things up, when we see the instructor for some time, when we see material that the instructor wants to present, maybe when we see both of them, so there are these different ways in which you sort of present yourself and the material to your students, and this actually keeps the students engaged. So there are these different ways called talking head, which is just you are visible to the student and you are talking. So of course this is good because students can see the expressions on your face. They sort of have some kind of a feeling that the teacher is talking to them directly. But then there are alternative ways also: Slidecast, which is PPT or PDF with voiceover, um, then screencast, picture in picture, tabletop. I have seen several school teachers doing this very effectively, sort of placing a mobile camera or some other camera sort of at a high enough place, and then writing so that students can see. But once again, what ends up happening is that these sessions usually become 40-minute sessions. And regardless of which format you're using, anything more than a 10-minute session you know is not going to be effective. So even when you're doing this, you really will have to plan out, okay, maybe I'll just write 2 sheets and then I will stop. I'll summarize what we have done and I'll stop, and that will be one chunk. And then, we'll start with the next chunk from the next logical starting point. For those of you who are, this is about a programming course, so you can actually, record, uh, different, IDs, or that you ask your students to use, how to use those IDs. You can record what sequence of commands to use. So basically you can give video demonstrations. Okay. Now, so once again, another 1 minute video that I'd like to play, Professor Sridhar Iyer sort of summarizing of what it requires to, what is it that we should pay attention to when we are creating an LED. So we'll go from 16 seconds. So once again, I'm using Curation to 1 minute 16 seconds. So I will jump here to 16 seconds.
To summarize, in order to create an LED, we can follow a two-stage process. Identify the pause points in a lecture in order to identify the topics and the chunks that constitute an LED. And then to identify the points in an LED where we want to provide learner engagement and connect by introducing reflection spots. In some cases, you may have the reflection spot in the beginning of the LED. In other cases, you may want to introduce them in the middle, while in yet other cases, you may have them towards the end of the LED. All of these are fine. One point to keep in mind is that it is necessary to close the loop for the learner by providing a commentary on what could be the different responses that the learners have given in the content that follows the reflection spot. This ensures that an LED is truly a dialogue between the instructor and the learner and not simply a one-way transmission of information.
Okay, so we stop here and then come back. So once again, I'm using curated content, and you can see that we don't need to see the whole thing, the relevant part. And here is a reflection spot over here, right? So two questions, and note the nature of these questions. These are not deep questions. If you have just been listening to what I have been saying, you should be able to answer these questions straight away. Okay, but this ensures that you know when I ask you to sort of go through this question, this ensures that it's not just a one way monologue going on. You're also required to do something back. And we could make these even graded, giving very low weightage. We could say, okay, all the self check questions today, on a particular day, people have to submit. I mean, this can be a Google form based thing, right? People have to submit, and there'll be whatever, 1 mark or 2 marks total coming from today's LEDs. Okay, so here you see that an instructor uploads 40 minutes of video of an explanation of a topic, and this is not an LED because, once again, would anybody want to volunteer for the first question? Which answer should
B,
be right?
B and C.
B and C.
B and C, sir.
It's too long. There is no reflection spot. Correct. So B and C, right?
B and C.
What about the second question? The purpose of a reflection spot in an LED is to do what?
It's also B and C, sir.
B and C, maybe D.
Yeah,
Not
we
D.
can
It's
use it
only B
also
and
for
C.
D, but the purpose is to really, provide opportunity, sort of, yeah. So to make learners express their thinking, and also to do a little micro practice, just like what we are doing here. Whatever we are learning, we're trying to sort of see, and we can also use it for grading the learners. If you feel that students are not really participating in it, then you can sort of say that, okay, there is a little bit of marks, very very small component of the marks available for that. Then there are these various technology tools available. OBS Studio, for those of you who have used it, this is a very very versatile tool. But there are other tools also available. Uh, for those of you who want to do editing, this is a you know this is a very very intensive task. Editing a video or audio is not an easy task. But if you want to do, there are free open source things available. Uh, and if you do want to add interactivity to your videos, I mean, for those of you who maybe are more comfortable with, IT tools, you can indeed try out H5P. Okay, this actually allows you to make interactive videos. So, and here is a very nice sort of matrix, which hopefully will be helpful for all of you. So let me just try to sort of tell you how to use this matrix. So here we are saying that you need to answer this question first. Which of the following do you really want to do you want to stay at the basic level of online teaching? Do you want to put in some more effort for editing your videos? Do you want to make good interactive videos? Or do you want to go all the way and make videos like professional MOOCs, like so massively open online courses, where at the same time maybe 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakh students can be can be taking the course. So based on your selection above, you can now sort of choose the tools that you want to use. So for example, as you see, OBS is freeware, but it really has, I mean, you can do your basic editing, advanced editing, professional editing. The learning curve for the basic editing is low, but for advanced and professional, you have to put in some more effort. And it is recommended for options 1 to 4, right? And then if you are using some other tools, so I mean, this is a very nice matrix that is created, tells you what is available for free, what is available for a fee, and you can decide at what level you want to be, whether you want to be just at the basic level or you want to go fully professional level. And you can then sort of use these tools. Okay. And there's also this, when you're doing recording at the basic level, you're probably only going to be using screen recording and audio recording. If you're at an advanced level, you're probably going to be recording video from a camera and from multiple sources. At a professional level, you'll do a lot of other things, right? And similarly, at a basic editing level, you'll be probably doing cutting, trimming, joining, overlaying, and all of these, and so on and so forth. Okay, so creating a LED is not a task that you can just start 1 hour before your class starts and say that, okay, I'm done with it. I'll just record something and put it up for the students to see. It actually requires a fair amount of planning, perhaps even retakes sometimes. But at the end, and keeping all of these principles in mind that we're talking about, uh, and at the end, what you generate are small chunks with reflection spots inserted in between. Okay. Now we will go to the next one, which is
Sir, before that, I would like to ask one question.
yes, please.
This metric, there is a curve. One of the column is learning curve. Can you just elaborate more?
So learning curve means how much effort do you need to put in as a teacher, as a user of these tools, to be able to use these features effectively, right? So at the basic level, if you're trying to do screen recording and audio recording using OBS, then the learning curve is low, which means that you don't need to put in too much effort to learn. It's not very complicated to do this. It's fairly
Okay.
simple to do this.
Okay.
Right? When we say medium, it means that if you want to take in videos from multiple sources and you want to put them together, do other kinds of things, then the learning curve is medium, which means you need to invest more time into learning it. It requires slightly more complicated, slightly more sophisticated techniques. It is not as simple techniques as you would do it for the basic recording and editing. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So I was trying to find a link that
perhaps that learning curve should be should we add something like the effort required by the teacher is low, medium, or high?
yes.
I think that
it
is
really
the
means
correct
that.
interpretation of that table.
It really means that. Yes. So then we have these learning, by doing, which is called LBD, which is activity-based learning. And once again, this is our colleague, Professor Sahana Murthy, another expert in educational technology. She's talking about it. And, what it's really saying is that when you're trying to make students apply something that they have learned so that their learning is improved, so that their learning is enhanced. I mean, for example, in a program, you are asking students to maybe write a small program using something that you taught them. Then it is best to ask them to do it immediately after you have taught them, immediately after that LED where you have taught that. Okay. So do not relegate all the LBD, all the learning by doing practice questions to the end of the very end of the module. You should do it as frequently as maybe after each LED, if that is what is appropriate. Because this is what also helps the students, just think about it from the student's perspective. The perception of burden on the students becomes much lesser because they know that, they have to see a 10-minute video, then they have to do a short activity, and then they have to see another 10-minute video. So they can probably, budget that time in their head. Okay, I'll see this now, I'll do this now. And they also get this sort of, positive feedback within them that they're able to do things, they're able to apply things that they have just learned in the last 10 minutes. And, of course, in the case of MCQs, you can provide constructive and customized feedback for each option. This is what Professor Phatak mentioned right on day one of that. IIT Bombay actually allows you to do that. And we do provide feedback for each of the options. So even if you have answered a question incorrectly, you get some feedback about, why that was incorrect and what should have been the right thing. And even if you have answered it correctly, you get some feedback that, yes, this is correct. And, these are the reasons why it is correct. So, so how do you create these, LBDs or activities around which, you can get students engaged? So I would like to actually, go to this thing. So once again, there are these reflection spots here. I will not go through them right now. And then there are a lot of technology tools, but I would like to point out this link that is there over here. And if you go there, actually I already have it. Okay, is everybody able to see my screen where it shows
Yes, sir.
LBD constructor PowerPoint?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it can be seen easily.
So I will just open this up in Google Slides and put it in presentation mode. So hopefully that should work. Yeah. And here you see actually, our colleagues have actually created the template for you. So, this is called a constructor. So this is actually something that you can take right away from here and use it to create learning by doing activities for you. Okay. So it says that, so actually let's go to the, so these are the steps that you need to go through to create a learning by doing activity. So you have to identify concepts for LBDs at various cognitive levels. Okay. So it says that, these LBDs are coming after you have taught something and you want the students to practice it. After you have taught them iterative constructs in Python, you want to make them use these iterative constructs in Python to do a simple little exercise. Okay. So you choose the LED for which you want to create LBDs. And remember, our LEDs are small chunks, 10-minute chunks, right? So the LBDs that you're talking about will also just make use of only those things that were taught in those small chunks, and of course the things that preceded those. So choose the LED for which you want to create, then identify the concepts there in which you want to the students to do some activity, and that is also at two levels. One is called the recall understand level, and the other is called the apply level. So what is the recall understand level? Recall understand level is you have already taught this in your LED. You just want the students to recall it and sort of apply it as is. So maybe you have taught in your LED how to iterate in a for loop and add up the elements of a list in Python, right? So this recall understand might be, you can say, okay, can you write a for loop in which it prints out all the elements of a list instead of adding up all the elements of a list, right? So they're basically going to recall it and some minor variations of what was done earlier, and they will be able to do this. You may also want to do this at the apply level, where you're trying to ask them to do something which is slightly beyond what you have taught them in the LED, but they have now got to think a little bit. So you might now want to say that, okay, now I want to create a nested loop, a loop within a loop. And earlier you had taught them how to iterate through a list and add up the elements of the list. Now you can say, well, I want to have a nested loop, and in this nested loop, maybe I want you to iterate through, the inner loop, I want you to iterate through a list, and then in the outer loop, I want you to sort of print that I'm iterating through the list the first time. The inner loop prints out the entire list. Again, it comes back to the outer loop, prints out iterating through the loop the next time, and again it prints out, right? So this is where you're asking them to go a step beyond what you may have immediately taught them, but not too much beyond. So if they have really understood how looping construct works, they should be also able to do a nested loop, right? So the important part is you choose the LED, you identify the concepts, try to decide whether you want to do it at the recall understand level or at the apply level. And there are sort of blank sheets available over here, so you can directly use these. You can just print these out. You can write in your stuff here that these are the concepts today that I'm going to create LBDs for, and these are the LEDs for which I'm going to create the LBDs for. And the next is, as I said, you write 2 to 3 recall understand level questions for concept attainment. Then you decide, of course, the pedagogical and technological format. Is it going to be through Google Form? Is it going to be multiple choice? Is it going to be free format? Whatever it is. And you provide customized feedback. And then once again, there are templates here that you could fill up. And then this is at the apply level, where you're trying to ask the student to apply what they have learned, not necessarily in exactly the same way as it was in the LED, but it's a similar way, but they have to put a little bit of more thought into it. As I said, from a single nested loop, you may want to go them. You may want to ask them to do a doubly nested loop, or you may want to ask them to iterate in a loop where there is a conditional thing, and only if some condition is satisfied, they add up something, otherwise they subtract something. So, they're applying the knowledge, not exactly in the same way as it was in their LED, but going a little bit beyond that. And of course, you could also do this at a higher cognitive levels also. Now you could say that, okay, now, for those who are really, really interested, the people who are really at the, sort of ahead of the class, kind of, you can give them some challenging problems there, which require some complex analysis, synthesis. and so that they also stay engaged in this, right? So what you see here is that, this entire template is kind of created for you, and you just need to fill in this template, follow these steps, and automatically you will get nice small activities that you can then ask your students to do. Okay, let me come out.
May I suggest all participants to do the following? If they have the facility, they could go to their respective offices and do that. Please do what Professor Supratik is suggesting. Just take a printout of these sheets. Just like we have workbook for our students, this is essentially a workbook for us, for teachers. And I would urge you to take that workbook, think about a concept, forget that you have not yet created LEDs and other things, but at least you can start identifying the components as per this pedagogy, which you need to work on, and then need to present these for any online session that you want to do. It's a wonderful exercise. Even if you don't implement it, it will permit you to think about different aspects very carefully. It will permit you to consolidate these thoughts in your own mind, so that later on, when you use these techniques, it will be much better. I personally believe it's an exercise worth doing by each one of you. Just take a printout. First of all, when you take a printout and look at it, you will peruse these contents. So you are essentially revising whatever Professor Supratik has explained you carefully. Then you apply your mind, think of any subject that you are teaching. It need not be programming, but it will be nice if in the context of this workshop, you think about a particular programming concept, then apply it and do this. If you do this exercise, I believe it will be really, really an enriching experience and experiment for you. Thank you. Sorry for interruption, Professor.
No, that's it's a very, very important point. I think these are things that, so, I mean, just like you can't learn swimming by reading a book, you actually have to jump into the water, gulp some water, get your body wet. So no matter how much theory we teach you over here, unless you apply these, you will not be able to see the benefits of this. You will not be able to appreciate the benefits of this. And remember that all of what we are talking about is thanks to our colleagues from educational technology, years and years and years of experience, research, effort. They have crystallized it into this kind of a course material. And this is now readily available to you at your own self-paced with templates created. I mean, there is really no excuse not to do what Professor Phatak is saying. I mean, if you really want to be a teacher who wants to engage in online learning, online teaching, you have to do this. It's just like if you really want to learn swimming, you have to jump into the water and get yourself wet. There is no, you can read 20 books on swimming, but you'll still not know how to swim. Okay, so if you really want to do effective online teaching, you have to go through this material and then you have to start applying it. And as you start applying it, you will see that not everything may be working exactly as you thought they would work. And then you have to adapt and you have to sort of, on the fly, you have to make course corrections just to make sure that, the basic objectives, the basic principles that we are talking about are met. Okay. So once again, here there is a reflection spot. So let me quickly ask, some participants maybe. So what are the goals of learning by doing activity? Anybody can?
BCD.
BCD.
Yeah, so learning by doing is not to introduce learners to new concepts, but to immediately apply the concepts learned in an LED, and to also get feedback and to integrate knowledge from various parts. But instead of the D is less of a thing than B, right? We are putting these LBDs. Remember, in the template we said choose an LED, and the LBD is going to be based on that LED. So it is not to integrate knowledge from disparate parts of the course, right? It is right that maybe at the end of the course, when you give a major programming assignment, you're trying to ask them to integrate knowledge from all parts of your programming course. But an LBD is really for small sections. So this is also important because, as I said, a student views one LED or two LEDs and then does the LBD. Now, if your LBD requires the student to see 20 LEDs before that, it's not going to work. The whole purpose of the LBD is that for specific LEDs, your making the student apply what the student learned in those specific LEDs, a few LEDs, perhaps even one LED, on a problem. Okay. And what about the next one? Which of the following should be included in feedback?
A,
C.
C, D. A, C, D.
C. So C.
C according to
Yeah, so attractive animation and sound, it's probably not necessary, but if you want to do it, that's okay.
A part is correct. Whether the chosen option is correct or wrong.
But that is not sufficient. It is necessary.
Along with that, C and D option should be there.
Yes, okay. And this, once again, there are technology tools available for doing this. For example, for some of you may have used Moodle, which is a very, very versatile platform for doing these LBD kind of stuff. Google's G Suite also allows a lot of these through Google Forms. Google Forms is also very, very versatile. And once again, there is a table here, there's a matrix here, depending on what you want to do. You want to set questions for MCQ. You can use different kinds of things. If you're trying to do it in a synchronous way, just like we are using poll in Zoom. If you want to do it in an asynchronous way, there are also other options available to you. And this also says what is free, what is paid, and all of that. Okay. So in general, I think for the asynchronous thing, Moodle, Google Forms, these are very, very versatile, and they don't have any licensing issues so far. Okay, so that was a fairly quick whirlwind tour of these things. I want to also talk about a few things about how to deliver content, but before that, let me make sure that the exercise that we started yesterday. So see, I mean, here is an example where I want to talk about sharing content. This is part of the stuff that I am hoping to cover by the end of today. But I also want to make sure that the exercise that we did yesterday in the breakout rooms, we have some follow-up on that. And so perhaps this is a logical point for me to break. Okay. And so identifying these logical points to break, where it is both for the instructor and for the student, there is some kind of, something has been completed and something is going to start, and in between we insert a little activity. So what I want to do in maybe the next 5 to 10 minutes at most, 10 minutes, let us say, is that ask. So remember yesterday's session, we had asked you to structure a programming assignment so that you can, do better evaluation, you can do part marking, you can give feedback to students, all of this. Unfortunately, because we ran out of time yesterday, we could hear just from one group. Today, what I want to do is I'm just going to call out some group numbers, and hopefully, somebody from those respective groups are present. So I'll just stop sharing right now. And I know we don't have all participants today. We have only 157, whereas yesterday we had much more. But it would be good to have a little discussion for the exercise that we did yesterday, because at the end of the day, it's not just about me lecturing or Professor Phatak lecturing. We need to have a dialogue. We need to have a conversation. Okay, so I think yesterday we heard from group 14, and the specific feedback was that they had done a very good job of sort of making things clear about how absentees should be recorded in the tables and all of that. But one major point that was missed by that group is that they did not break it up into parts which could be individually graded, evaluated, feedback given. So I'm now just going to call up a few random groups, hopefully 2-3 random groups, and request some representative from the group to just tell us how you had structured your programming assignment yesterday, so that all of us can hear, all of us can provide our feedback. We can also tell you, what was right and what was wrong. Hopefully nothing was wrong, and how it can be improved. Okay, so just a random guess. So is group 7 that was there yesterday? Yesterday's group 7. Is anybody here from group 7?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Myself, Chaya Gosavi.
Okay. Yeah. Could you please? Thank you for volunteering to tell us how you structured the problem in your group. So could you please tell that to us quickly?
Sir, we have divided the problem into 4 parts. First one is depending upon the data structures the students have chose. Like they have chosen list or array or dictionary. So choice of data structure. Second was how to accept input from the user. Means roll number, name, marks of 2 subjects, like that. Then how to perform the addition, whether they have used which type of control structure, for loop, while loop, etc. And then finally display the output.
Okay. And do you want the students? So that's good. So do you want the students to sort of write separate functions for these, or in the same monolithic function you want them to say that it should have a part of the code that is doing this and then a part of the code?
Yeah, modulation and validations are also carrying few marks. Means whether they have done some validations and modulation, means different functions, divided this program into small functions.
Okay, so that's a good suggestion. Yeah, let us hear from a few more other groups. Then we would just discuss a few generic points, and then we'll come back to our discussion on.
So can we share? I'm from group 5.
Yeah, please share.
Sir, can you just open the link that I have shared in the chat window just now?
Yeah.
Yeah, sir. Just because of lack of timing, we were not able to complete the first page. So after the session, we had revised the new one. Can you go to the page number 2? Okay. So here we have just placed the context of the problem, what exactly the student has to do. So that is to prepare results of class grade 5, just for example, grade 5, where students are learning 5 subjects and going to appear in 2 examinations subsequently, exam 1 and exam 2.
Correct.
And the exam 1, where all the 5 subjects have total marks 50. And for exam 2, the total marks of each subject is 30 marks. So what student has to do here, we have placed several notes that student has to be taken care of. So here I've mentioned the one note that you can use any data structure. So I have given one example. Like as per the example, you can use 2-dimensional array, but student has to mention like the 100 is that is the indicates maximum number of students in a class. The column 0 is reserved for the identity of the students like roll number, and the column 1 to 5 is for storing the mark of each 5 subjects. Then solution must contain at least one module for the process, but you can go for more modules too. So at least one modularized approach should be there to perform the processes. But if student wish, they can go for the more modularized concept as well. Now, while entering the data, solution has to make sure the obtained marks must be within the range from 0 to total mark. That it should not be a negative or it should not be more than the total marks. And if it is so, then the particular number is to be represented by -2, and that is not to be considered during the process.
Okay.
And if student is absentees, then the absentee is to be represented by -1.
Okay.
Also, the student need to display the summary of process data, like total number of students appear in the examination, how many absentees are there, how many erroneous data were entered by the users, total number of pass and fail students. So this is the summary that student has to mention at the end of process.
Okay.
Then the passing criteria is 40% in each subject, because to compute the pass and fail, the student must know. So the percentage of passing is 40% in each subject in all examinations.
Okay.
Okay. Next page, sir. Then this is a guideline shared with the student that how the teacher is going to assess the solution. There are several criteria like what kind of data structure is to be used, then data validations, the mapping of students, because the data fitted in the table 1 and table 2 may be vary from order to order.
Correct.
So here the mapping of exam 1 table to exam 2 table to carry out the merit list. So if mapping is done, that is one of the criteria. Then rank list is to be produced. That is already mentioned in the noting. So if it is there, we have mentioned here the exit. Exit means if everything is perfect in place with efficiency criteria, with all other expected from the teacher, then it is exit. We can say it's excellent rather. Then expected means at least if there are solution gives the expected result with even some inefficient way will be considered. Meeting means there are minor mistakes. So for each criteria, the description is mentioned, and needs improvement means student is not able to use the proper construct, proper data structures. They are not able to feed the correct data. So if many majorities mistakes are there, we can say it's a needs improvement.
Great.
This
And
is the
similarly,
assessment
you have
criteria.
things for that data validation and mapping and rank list and all of that.
Yes, yes.
Very
Summary
good.
of results and the structure of output, how the student is going to display on the screen. So that structure of output is also important to evaluate the problem. So this we have done with group 5 members.
Very good. So that's very good. I mean, this is an excellent thing. And, I think,
Prof. Supratik,
yes.
I think I would like to add just a few words.
Sure.
First of all, my sincere compliments. I think it's an excellent exercise that has been done by this group in whatever room they were. I'm sure we are proposing to put all these submissions in the course page so that they are visible to all the people. So may I request Firuza to organize a mechanism whereby all the groups can submit such observations there. But I must say that this is an so that's all I wanted to say. In fact, I would take this as one of the great takeaways from this workshop for all of us. And if such group efforts are made by people, this also illustrates what is the advantage of group discussions and group thinking, which helps tremendously in consolidating overall thoughts for any particular activity. So thank you very much.
Sir, may I request all the members of group 5 to turn on the videos, because this is the group efforts.
Absolutely. Yeah. Please, group 5 members.
So can you recite their names, Kamlesh?
Yeah, you can just.
Sir, yesterday we were too busy, and because of lack of timing, we did not introduce each other.
Oh, okay.
Supratik, can you stop sharing so that we can see these?
Yes, I'll stop sharing.
So I can see Kamlesh. Was Viresh also part of the group?
Yes, Viresh. One is Sital is also there. Sital, by the name Sital. So these are the group members. We did yesterday lots of discussion, but somehow because of some problems, we did not introduce each other.
Yeah. I mean, we were running out of time yesterday.
Yes. But even we did not turn on the video, except the Viresh. No one has turned on the video even.
I see. Yeah, we can see Sheetal. Yeah.
Commission, I was there.
Yes.
Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you, everybody.
Great.
I think both I joined Professor Supratik in appreciating this effort. I'm sure other rooms would have also had similar discussions. I look forward to getting such consolidated inputs from each group over a period of time. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that this was very good, Kamlesh. I hope all participants sort of got an idea of, that when we are teaching students, whether online, offline, whatever, and when we are giving a programming assignment to them, it is not just about whether for every input they are giving the right output or not. It's programming is like building a system, and then you have to make sure that there are different parts of the system that are in place. The different parts of the system are talking to each other properly. The different parts of the system are sort of well specified, and everybody has used it in the right way. I mean, for building any system, we have to follow these principles, and these kinds of instructions coming from the instructor basically put this thought in the student's mind that yes, I should go about and structure my program this way. On the other hand, if I just say at the level at which I described the problem yesterday, just to keep it very nebulous, to keep it very hazy, and to let you figure out how you wanted to do it. If you just say, okay, there are two tables and they have marks, you have to combine them and put one table where you add the marks. It's not even clear to the student. I mean, when I say a student, there is this entire spectrum. Some are very smart, some are maybe very good at coding, some are just struggling with coding, some may not be comfortable at all with coding. And for this entire spectrum of students, it just presents completely different pictures. For the guy who's very smart, he might do it exactly the way Kamlesh said, do it in a very structured way. But for the other guy, he might say, oh, kuch to karna hai, let me just get done and put together something, and as long as the inputs and outputs match, things are okay. But that's not the way we want them to learn programming, right? And so when you put such structure into it, when you say that, okay, here are the things that you can use, you have to choose which one to use, there are pros and cons of each one of them, here are the ways in which you modularize it, and here is what our expectation is, and here is how you can exceed the expectation or fall below that expectation. It also sort of provides inspiration to the student to sort of put in that little effort to follow the structure that you have put and sort of do well. And this, of course, also helps in providing feedback for doing part marking, all of that. Okay, so good. Thank you. What I'll do in the last, I guess we have just 25 minutes, but we started 15 minutes late. Yeah, let me try to see if we can finish this off within the stipulated time. So I will go back to the course page that we were talking about and try to highlight at least a few things. I mean, clearly I will not be able to go through everything, and it is your job as a participant in the course to sort of do that. But at least let me try to see if we can highlight a few things. Yeah, so I will try to give a very high level sort of overview of these two sections, delivering content and interaction with students. So we'll go to delivering content, and the main things here is that how do you share your content once you have created LEDs and LBDs and all of that? How do you share them? What about live online interactions, and what about additional resources? Okay, so for sharing content, it is, of course, if you have recorded it and if you have created the LBDs through Google Forms or some other kinds of things, you really need to put it, instead of sort of sending a separate YouTube link every time. It's important to sort of organize these in, for example, either Moodle or Google Classroom. There are similar other platforms. And similarly, from IIT Bombay, we have IITBX, we have Bodhi, Moodle is there. So the idea is that it should not require, I think, so I think this is an important statement over here, that keep your learners in mind and avoid making them do multiple and complicated actions to access your course. So it should be an easy task for them, not very hard to remember where things were, not too many links to remember every time, where they can go and then they can click on the right links and access your course. Okay, so I'm sure most of you are already using one of these platforms, maybe Google Classroom, maybe Moodle. And so there are, of course, multiple constraints that work. It depends on what your parent institution has subscribed to. If there are recommendations from your institution, what do you want to, how do you want to use the platform? And so, for example, if you go through this, here they have explained, our colleagues have explained why they chose Google Sites. You see that this course is being hosted on Google Sites. Why they chose Google Sites as the platform for delivering this course, and they considered several options like Bodhi, ITBX, Moodle, and so on. And then there are some reasons why they have chosen this. Okay, and then there are other platforms available. So once again, there's a reflection spot. We will skip that in the interests of time. And then these are resources available for uploading content, text-based, audio, videos, and so on. Quiz and assignments. And as I said, how do you disseminate this content to students? How do you let students know? They need to know the links, but have them organized under Moodle or Google Classroom or whatever, so that it doesn't become difficult for them to sort of find these links. So the key point to take back from here is that have a platform that you're using. Don't keep it too ad hoc that every day I will WhatsApp you a new link and you just click on that link and then come and do something. So have a platform, use the features of that platform. Moodle, Google Classrooms, I think, are excellent platforms that you can use completely free. For those in the Kendriya Vidyalaya system, Google is actually making available G Suite free for educational institutions. You just need to contact them, create a domain, and they will make the entire G Suite available for you, which has all kinds of features, facilities, all bundled together. Sometimes I have seen this, that and perhaps many of you can relate to this, that in a school or in a college what happens is that halfway into the year the teacher is changed. Maybe the teacher got transferred or took leave or something, and the teacher is changed. Now, if the Google Classrooms are being created based on personal Gmail IDs of the individual teachers, when a teacher changes, the new teacher starts a new classroom, right? Because the previous classroom had to be accessed through the Google account of the previous teacher. And now just imagine the horror for students. I mean, half of the year they have all their material in one classroom. Now the other half of the year they have to switch over to this new classroom. There is confusion. Part of the material is there, part of the material is here. And this is eminently avoidable. If, for example, if your school registers its domain and then asks Google for a G Suite account, and just under the G Suite account, there are no personal accounts over there. It's all teacher accounts and student accounts. Whoever is the teacher for a subject for the first half of the year, that teacher gets the authentication for that account. They can use it there. Nothing is connected to your personal accounts. And similarly, Moodle is also a very powerful system, freely available. So most of you are, or at least a lot of you are computer teachers over here. So it should be possible for you to install Moodle on a server in your respective institutions, and it really has a very, very powerful set of features that you can use to, right? So the point is, make it easy for students to access. Okay, now we'll quickly go to live interactions. So live interactions is what we are doing today, right now. Okay, and remember, right at the beginning, we said 2/3 pre-recorded LEDs, LBDs, all of those, and 1/3 live interaction. So this question often gets asked, that should we at all have live interactions, because some students may be disadvantaged and they will not be able to attend. So should we at all have live interactions? So the short answer to that is that it is important to have live interactions, but it is also important to do the live interactions in the right way. Okay, so we do them periodically. It's not that all the material is presented in live interactions. You never, we'll come to those. So you never try to teach a new concept through a live interaction which was not already present in an LED. Okay, live interaction is meant for interacting. It is meant, right? So it is important to do live interactions, but the purpose of live interactions is not to teach a new concept for which you haven't provided an LED before. That's absolutely the wrong idea, right? It is for interacting with students. It is for sort of answering questions posed by students and posing questions to students to answer, or activities for them to do. Okay, that's the purpose of a live interaction, which is why we are repeatedly saying that when you are coming, the next time we'll see you is next weekend. Please do your homework and come, because this interaction is not meant to teach you things from scratch. This interaction is meant to, we can go over at a very high level, and then it's meant for answering questions from you. Okay, so there are different, so as I said, live interactions are necessary. It helps connect, the students stay connected with their teachers, and even the teachers stay connected with their students. Because if you only did asynchronous mode of interaction, then it can lead to isolation, disinterest, even complete signing off of some students. Okay, and now getting students to send their questions in advance and addressing them systematically during the interaction. Taking a tutorial, basically going through what has already been taught, but doing some problem solving with those. These are effective live interaction sessions. Okay, how not to do live interaction sessions. So this is something that I have personally experienced some school teachers doing, and this is absolutely not the way to do live interaction. Should not be a substitute for your face-to-face classes. Okay, you should not use a live interaction to teach a new topic for 40 minutes or 45 minutes. Okay, and doing a lecture in a live session, recording it and then making it available to students is also not effective. Okay, that is because when you're doing this lecture in a live interaction, it's not the same as a face-to-face lecture where you can see the faces of your students. You can sense whether students are understanding, not understanding, and at the same time there are lots of interruptions that keep happening when you are doing a live interaction session. So to just record it and make it available to students and say that, okay, please see it, that's really not effective. Okay, and we said this earlier also, perhaps providing a summary is much more effective. Okay, and then there are some do's and don'ts about doing live interaction sessions using Zoom, Meet, and Google Meet, and so on. So there are some best practices. We won't go into all of them. The important part is that live interactions have to be planned well, and these are meant for interactions. These are not meant for monologues. You are not just delivering your content to the students and then saying that's it, our live interaction is over. These should really be question answer sessions. And then there are several technological platforms available for those, text-based interaction, video interaction, all of that. Okay. Now, providing additional resources. So once again, I will summarize it at a very high level. So typically in your classroom, in all classrooms, there will be a certain percentage of students who are really way ahead of the class, and they are sort of raring to go and take on tougher problems, more challenging problems. And there'll also be some segment of the students who are really trailing behind, and you need to help them sort of catch up with the average mark in the class, the average level of competence in the class. And then most of the students would be lying in between. Now, it is important to provide, when you're providing additional resources, it is actually important to provide additional resources for all these categories of students, those who are trailing, those who are way ahead, and those who are just keeping pace with the class, right? So we have to address diverse student needs highlighted here, and you can specify what goal or what need each resource addresses. So you can sort of provide some resources. What do we mean by resources here? These could be additional reading material, additional videos for them to see, additional exercises for them to solve, right? Additional PDFs for them to read, additional slides for them to look at. But it should be clear. You should make it clear, because if you're giving something for advanced students, and the guy who's really trailing behind in the class, if that person does not know that this was really meant for the advanced students, they may just be struggling with it and they may feel demotivated. So when you're providing additional resources, make it clear that this is not necessary for whatever the course curriculum is, but for those who are interested, these are some challenging problems. This is indeed necessary. We expect everybody to be able to do this, and if you're having trouble doing this, you should contact us immediately. These are for the the people who are trailing in the class. And so this is one thing. It should be sort of for every segment of students, and there should also be some incentives for students to go through the ones of their interest. Okay, and what kind of incentives could these be? I mean, it could be a short graded activity. So as you can see, when we talk of these learning extension trajectories, there are multiple trajectories, could be for different levels of students, and it's all fine. A student doesn't need to go through all the trajectories. A student can choose the trajectory that they want, but you have to make it clear to them that if you are having difficulties, then you should try to attempt these questions, take that quiz, maybe read up that. If you're already doing very well and you're looking for some more challenging problems, then you should do this and that and that. So that to students, it's not confusing that which one they should be doing. These are parallel trajectories for students with different capabilities. And then at the end of it, you can have assimilation quiz. It could be a graded activity, it could be a graded quiz, and it could be graded with different metrics. For the students who are trailing, you could be trying to understand how well they understood the basic stuff. For students who are advanced, you could be trying to understand how well they're able to apply to newer, more challenging problems. Okay. And once again, our colleagues have created this template for you to sort of create this learning extension trajectories, the template and guidelines. So once again, I would request all of you to go through it, right? So as you can see, the first thing is list all possible categories of students and identify the modules or LEDs for these, and then prioritize the categories. Okay, and then for which learner category, what is the learner purpose, what is the priority, should they be doing it mandatorily? For example, for the guys who are trailing behind, maybe you want them to do something mandatorily as additional exercise. For the students who are way ahead of the class, you might just say, do it at your spare time, do it if you want to try more challenging problems, right? And then you can search for resources. This doesn't have to be completely things created by you. There are actually plenty of good resources available on the internet. Check copyright, give appropriate attribution that this is taken from here, and then you finalize the resources. And then the templates are all there. I think you just need to take printouts of these, fill them out, and you should be all set. And create the task, and then finally create the assimilation quiz. So which is trying to say that what did you expect the learner to have understood through this resource, and then you create questions that check whether the learner really understood that resource. Okay. So once again, this is available for those of you who are accessing the.
I just add one more point, Supratik.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add to the categorization that Professor Supratik mentioned. This is slight digression, but I think you should all be aware of the efforts going on globally, consolidated in one of the 14 grand challenges, which the United States National Academy of Engineers has identified at the beginning of this century, about 10, 12 years ago. These are called grand challenges for this century because it is expected that most of them will require almost a century for the humanity to find solutions to this. So, for example, solar energy, cheap drinking water, etc., are actually some of the listed items. One of them, which directly concerns us as teachers, is called personalized instructions. Personalized instructions go further from what Professor Supratik mentioned as categorizing the students. And he's perfectly right. Most of us would be able to categorize students into three broad categories: the laggards, the average students who are doing well, and well performers. And of course, as he said, we must cater to each of these categories. But considering that each individual student has a different learning habit, it is expected that over this century, methods will be worked out to figure out, to model every learner, not just based on the scores that the learner gets, but also from the learning habits as captured through online interaction and through other means. And then, having created a model for each individual student, the ambition of personalized instructions is to ensure that every individual student gets additional curated contents which are ideal for that particular student, not only the content, but the way in which they should be used, the sequence in which they should be used. You can see that this is not easy to do at all. In fact, you would have heard of personal tuitions. So when a teacher is teaching one student, is that not what that teacher will do? I understand exactly the entirety of the student's learning, plus students' learning habits, plus how well the student will take to either hard questions or simple questions. Where does he need more explanation? Is he inclined to look at the problems directly, or is he inclined to reading the books? And accordingly, A teacher giving a personal tuition would shape the mechanism of teaching. In fact, this is what every mother or father at the home does. You may have three children in the family, but each of them has a different way of approaching studies. And the mother and father actually are ideal teachers because they understand the difference and they accordingly treat every student. Going forward, since this is the ambition, what all of us are doing are actually figuring out at our own level with our own students details about how such learning models can be eventually established for each individual student in any class for any subject, and then prepare automation supported by a large amount of additional curated contents prepared for not just every category but for every student. This is a hard problem. I just thought, sorry for taking a few minutes of your time, but I just thought you should be aware that the computer scientists and educationists together are actually working on this problem. If this problem can be solved, it's almost like solving a health problem for every individual human being for a personalized health treatment.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Supratik, for humoring me.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think this is that's where the future is. Uh, Personalized education, personalized health. Yeah. Okay. Let me use the remaining time to just talk about another very important component, which is also there as, I mean, please do not take these as just the final word. I mean, you are required. We require you to go through the material, to go through the videos. They are excellently prepared material videos. They are not talking about unnecessary stuff. So what I'm trying to do is just trying to point you to the some of the important sections in there, and trying to sort of highlight some of the important points that have been made there. So once again, I will go back to the thing, and then we will actually come to this next very important component, which is interacting with students. Okay. So we have now told you roughly how to create LEDs, how to create LBDs, how to provide additional resources so that you can have define different trajectories for different students with additional resources. And now is this business about interacting with students. Okay. And so there are sort of couple of very important points over here, which is that it is important to communicate frequently in a timely way and in an easy way. So it should not be something that becomes difficult for the student to access, to really figure out what the teacher was trying to say or what the teacher's instructions were, right? And for this purpose, once again, given the diversity of students that you may have in your class, the diversity of their socioeconomic backgrounds also that you may have, it is important to use a variety of communication media and tools. Not everything may work for everybody, but it is important that every student feels that they are able to easily communicate with their teacher, okay, and in a timely way. So, for example, discussion forums is one of the most commonly used tools. Uh, you know, so essentially, discussion forums are asynchronous platforms that are available. So there are, I mean, we have a lot of examples of these that you can use, like Piazza, Google Groups, other discussion forums on Moodle, and so on. So a student or a teacher can post a query or a comment or a message at any time, and whoever checks in next gets to see it. This can all happen in an asynchronous way. Okay. But and I think a lot of school teachers are already using this very effectively, using WhatsApp groups. In fact, there was a question right on, I think yesterday or day before, whenever, that does communicating over WhatsApp constitute synchronous or asynchronous teaching. So I believe most usage of WhatsApp, most teachers are using WhatsApp groups, or maybe there are other similar groups, but I think WhatsApp is being used mostly to actually post communication for asynchronous for asynchronously looking at it. You don't expect students to immediately respond to it or to immediately see it at the same time that you have posted it. But then that because WhatsApp is so popular and almost everybody with a smartphone today has WhatsApp, therefore they're more likely to see it. So you can repurpose everyday communication tools for this: email, WhatsApp, whatever works for you. Having regular weekly office hours. So this could be the live video interaction that you're going to have, or it could be a separate office hour also, where you can say that, well, if anybody has an issue, then they can come and we can discuss their issues. Right? And so it is important to basically keep multiple channels of communication open in different ways, so that students feel that it is possible for them to communicate with their teacher. I mean, we all know that during this kind of time, when students are away from their schools and colleges for a very long period of time, it is but natural for students to feel that they're disconnected from their teacher. And so the live interaction, timely response, discussions on forums where you participate, other students participate, this actually helps them stay connected. And for a course like programming, this should be, discussion forums and all could be very, very useful, because you may be asking about a particular, you may be saying that, okay, here is a little code snippet and it is not working, can somebody comment on why it is not working? Somebody may say, oh yeah, this is the reason why it may not be working, can you try out that? So it's like a typical interaction that would normally happen maybe with students sitting on a computer or sitting in a classroom, but now that is happening over maybe a WhatsApp group or a Google group, or a discussion forum on Piazza or wherever, right? And there are different technology tools available for this, which you can go and check out. It's important for the discussions to be meaningful, and by this what we mean is that it is important for the discussion to have some focus rather than just meander and stray away and not achieve anything. I mean, the purpose of the discussion, the purpose of any discussion should have a focus, and at the end of the discussion, that focus should have been achieved, hopefully. Okay. So what is recommended is that you as a teacher, so for example, suppose you see a discussion going on in one of your whatever Google Classrooms or Moodle, whatever you're using, on a particular thing about a programming construct, maybe, so somebody may say, okay, in Python, does it really matter whether I put a tab or a space to denote the indentation? And, somebody might be answering something. And it is very important for you as a teacher to sort of put seed questions to sort of get the discussion to focus around the topic. Otherwise it can just stray away. So this is what we say, that start with a focus question to seed the peer discussion. So the discussion is going to happen between peers, and perhaps occasionally with some inputs from you, but you can, by providing, because you are the instructor, all the students look up to you, whatever you say. So if you put focus questions to seed the discussion, then you'll see that the discussion is gravitating towards that point that you mentioned in your question. And so you will basically avoid scattered discussion, which often happens in online courses. And it will also sort of help students, a student might be wanting to say 5 different things which may not be related, but when they see a focus question from an instructor, they sort of answer with things that are related, pertinent to that focus question, and that's how the discussion gets focused, right? So the point here is that when you are seeing discussion happening in discussion forums, it is important to keep those discussions focused and not stray away. And for this purpose, it is perfectly okay to give focus questions, to seed the discussions with some focus questions. Okay. Reflection quiz, we have seen. Reflection quiz closes the loop of the learning process. It can carry a small grade. It doesn't have to be very, very deep, but it should sort of make sure that the student has really understood what was said and is perhaps able to do a bit of recall and a bit of application. Okay, so here there are some videos, short videos on how to create this interaction with the reflection quiz. Okay, so you have to first decide which topic you want to have this reflection quiz on, what is the focus question, and then you also have to maybe think about that, okay, what are the possible similar questions that might have arisen in the students' minds, and then sort of try to link your focus question with those things as well. Okay, so once again, this LXI constructor is again a template that you can download and use to plan your the interactions. And similarly, there are several tools available for this, and you can go through this. Okay. And finally, before we end today's session, I would like to talk about the importance of orchestration. Uh, I guess we have seen some of this happening in the course that we are conducting right now. I mean, on day one, when we realized that several of you did not have programming background, it did throw our orchestration out of our plans, and we really had to sort of replan and reorchestrate this whole thing, which is why we are now taking separate sessions from 2:30 to 3:30 and so on, right? So the key point here is that students are managing multiple course activities, and they're doing this right now at a distance. They're not in a classroom where 50 other students are also trying to do the same things, right? And so it is very important, I think, to help students uh, tell what is the sequence of things that they should be doing, particularly for your course, right? So if you're teaching a programming course, then you should be telling them that, okay, let us first do this. When we put out some material and we say, okay, the students can do it at their own self pace, if you don't put any deadline on it, if you don't put any timeline on it, the student might think that, I will do it at the end of the year, just before the exam. So you give some leeway, so the student doesn't have to attend a live interaction session. The student doesn't have to maybe do it right today, but maybe in 2 days, maybe in 3 days, the student should finish doing that. And that also helps the students because it allows them not to procrastinate things. It allows them to finish things on time and then move on to the next thing. That's what we are also asking from you in this course, that please go through this background material so that all of us can proceed at the planned orchestrated pace, which has already taken a beating because, not all of you have been able to go through the material. So what is orchestration? Orchestration is basically helping students, this temporal flexibility given to students, particularly during online learning, could mean that, the students may do it at different times, at different places, and things may really get disconnected. So the role of the instructor is to here point out, guide, and manage in real time the various activities of the students, right? So you tell that, okay, even if it is not in real time, it has to be with a deadline, that over the next 2 days, you must do this, and then you must submit that quiz, and then we will proceed, so that after the next 2 days, we know that. So that students don't get too much out of sync with each other and with the class and with your plan of teaching. Okay?
Here,
Yes.
the challenge is how to track the progress of the student.
As I said, well, so once again, there is no silver bullet for this, which will work in all circumstances. This is circumstance specific. But instead of giving, large or very deep conceptual or, very hard problems for them to sort of do, I think you can just give them small exercises, simple exercises, which are more of the attention recall kind of thing, and maybe simple applications. So, essentially, if a student feels that, oh, yes, I can do this, it's a small amount of material, it's an LED of 10 minutes, okay, I'll see the 10 minutes, and then I'll do this thing, and then I've progressed a little bit, right? It's positive feedback for the student to sort of saying that, okay, I have progressed a little bit, and then I'll go and do that. Now, what you're asking is a perfectly valid question, is that there will always be students who will not be coaxed, cajoled into doing this even after all of this. That's a kind of orthogonal question. That happens even in face-to-face classes, that happens in all settings. So we have to deal with those students separately. Maybe we have to connect with those students separately, try to understand what maybe they're facing some problems at their homes. But to encourage the large majority of students, to encourage them to sort of march in kind of lockstep with everybody. It doesn't have to be fully lockstep, but it's not completely out of, no connection between what one is doing and the other is doing. It's not that. So to help them do that, I think it's important to give very short modules, and then these reflection things, small graded quizzes, which most of them should be able to answer. Your purpose there is not to differentiate between the guys who can think really deep and the guys who are not able to think really deep. The purpose of those short tests, short quizzes, is to make every student feel that yes, I'm also progressing in the course, right? If you're doing a programming assignment, just give a skeleton of a program and keep maybe a few simple statements missing, and just tell them, okay, can you do this? And also maybe give a few more difficult ones, which maybe the advanced learners will try to attempt. But at least the ones who are average or below average will also feel that they're able to do something. The joy of seeing your program running and actually printing out something is immense. I mean, it has a huge positive feedback on the student, but you need to help the students do that by breaking things up into small enough parts and by letting them do only small things, right? It doesn't have to be a very large thing, right? So I mean, that's not a panacea for all the kinds of situations that you're talking about, but I think this typically helps. The idea is to provide positive feedback to the student, to say, yes, you can also do it, let's go along, let's take the next small step. And of course, in the next step they may find it more difficult, but then the fact that they have proceeded one small step stays as an encouragement, at least for some time, for them to keep trying it, right? And then of course they'll have peer discussions, they'll have maybe discussions on the discussions forums and all of those. Okay, some things here that I want to point out which actually make a lot of difference is that you should make your course plan visible to students. Okay, it should not be that students have no idea that in the last 2 days you're going to cover 10 chapters, and previously the chapters were going at a much slow rate. So you should make the course plan available. Okay, you should announce and remind them about deadlines so that they don't forget about it, or it doesn't slip out of their mind. You should monitor their performance and provide feedback, okay, supporting and encouraging students regarding their progress. So this is the feedback part. This is, as I was saying, that our goal here in providing these little reflection quizzes, small LBD activities, the simple ones, is not really to test who can solve the most complex problems. It's just to make every student feel that yes, they have also been able to learn something and they're also progressing. And of course, the advanced learners will have more deeper problems to solve. You can make those available separately. Okay, so this is the important point. So with all of this, they will feel this presence, their presence, in the progress of the course, which is a crucial aspect of online learning. So the students feel connected to their fellow learners, to the instructor, and to the course content. Okay, so here are some strategies that have been recommended. At a high level, announce your plan at least on a weekly basis. Be regular about posting materials. Send an announcement whenever material is posted on WhatsApp, on Google Classroom, on whatever mechanism you think. It's okay to even have redundancy in this. It's okay for the same student to receive it by email and also by WhatsApp, but basically they should know. Okay, personalize messages and emails. This is very important. If possible, if you're responding to a student who's having trouble, just addressing that student by name and saying that, okay, I understand what you're doing. I mean, all of us are teachers, we understand that these make a difference to students. Provide catch-up days. I mean, we had to do that in this course itself for students to complete their assignments. And if you have teaching assistants available, which you may not have available in schools particularly, but in colleges, if you have this available, then you can actually assign some of these orchestration tasks to them. Okay, so once again, there are more details on the orchestration dynamics. You can see these videos. I would like to conclude today's session here. It's 5:35. Once again, maybe 10 minutes we will take questions, and then at 5:45 we'll end today. I mean, we started 15 minutes late.
Just add one more point, Professor Supratik.
Yes, please.
So one thing I would like to remind all of us, that there are 24 hours in a day only, and that everyone, just like we have constraints, even students have constraints. They all have different activities to be done. Now, what happens typically is that when I am teaching a course, I tend to believe that all students in my class are doing just that course and nothing else. Actually, I was reprimanded by my colleagues long time ago when I was young, when Professor Narayan came and told me that I and another professor who used to teach electrical fields, uh, he says that both of you believe that students have nothing else to do in their life but just to study computer programming and electrical fields. You give so many assignments, your exam times are always extended after the students start writing the exam. What is this nonsense going on? That was the time when we realized that we have to actually plan and apportion activities such that they can be reasonably done. That is number one. Secondly, what Professor Supratik said about announcing the course plan right in advance is very significantly important, because that way we also ensure that our nuggets that we give in every week are sort of reasonably balanced and we cover the entire thing such that things don't get loaded somewhere in between. But almost always keep this in mind. Please tell students how much time they are expected to spend on this course, say per week. For example, most of our institutions, IIT Bombay has that thing. It says that for a 300 course or a 3 lecture hours per week course, the student is expected to spend 3 to 5 hours per week to study that subject. Unfortunately, of course, nobody spends that kind of time. Most students spend time while preparing for exams and so on. That is one of the reasons, by the way, why the flipped classroom does not, fails often. Because we expect students to use those 3 to 5 hours at home to actually view those videos before coming to the class. But students who have never in their life spent 3 to 5 hours per week for that course, or any course for that matter, think that this is an extra burden. So there have been occasions when, in fact, the 2014 course, which I remember Professor Supratik and I took, were to introduce a small quiz of 5 minutes at the beginning of every class, just to test whether the students have seen those videos or not. Very simple question. But then, because there were marks to a quiz, all students started viewing it. So some such things you may have to do. But please ensure that students are not overburdened and that they are well informed ahead of time as to how much time they will be required to spend, so that they can also see. They also have games to play, they also have movies to see, they also have friends to chat with and so on, like all of us. So it is better to help them plan their activities and time well. Sorry, Supratik, for expanding on this, but I believe it's a very important point that you made.
No, absolutely.
All of us should recognize.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll open it up for discussion in the sense that if somebody has any questions or comments, maybe we'll take that for a few more minutes, 5:45 or maybe 5:47, whatever.
Sir, can you suggest a platform, especially for learning by doing in programming subject, where the problems, either the full problems or the partial problems given to the students, where they perform and immediately we can come across the grading part?
The partial problems they do are immediately they get feedback.
So partial problem is given, like, in a problem, some of the instructions are missing and we have given to them in the platform.
Yeah.
They will write some instructions and execute the code successfully through the some predefined test cases, and immediately it will be considered as a grading, and we can come to know this many students have already done it with 100% test cases.
I believe on IIT Bombay X, the auto grader that we have can be utilized for such purposes. Firuza can confirm whether there are some practice problems which students can actually write programs, submit, and automatically get a feedback.
Now, that I did in the platform IIT Bombay X for the practice assignment. But I'm asking for, suppose my classes, if I am running a class. Yeah.
Okay, I understand. By the way, what we use is all open source. I do not know whether we have released it or we are using and I think we use codeboard itself, but the mechanism of pushing an incoming assignment to this autograder, getting it executed, and then sending the results back to the student. This workflow is actually arranged by the IIT Bombay X platform, that is the Open edX platform. Now, such workflow may or may not be available elsewhere. I will. This is a good question that you are raising. I think all teachers in all institutions would be facing a similar problem. So let us apply our mind. It's a very good point, problem that you point out. Let us try to solve it. Before the end of the this workshop, I'm sure I'll come up with some suggestions at least. But good question. Thank you.
So at this point of time, we are giving a problem to the students. They are writing instructions. They are submitting back the file, and teacher is spending lots of time to evaluate it.
It's a terrible waste of teacher's time. A teacher can far more meaningfully spend that time in doing something else.
Yeah, agree, sir.
Yeah, so we will, I mean, basically the technology for this is there. We are already using it in IITBX. We have to try to find out how to make it available outside IITBX. Right. I mean, so yeah, we'll discuss this and we'll come back to you about this. Try, some solution that hopefully can be taken to the schools as well. Okay.
Sir, I like that breakout room facility, which is in that Zoom. So such type of facility is available in Meet also. May I know?
I am not very sure. I have to check.
Ma'am, it is available, but in paid version of Meet. That is an enterprise version. We have the facility.
Paid version.
No. But are you sure it's because that's what I said?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is. I'm sure, sir. I'm sure it is there, but in enterprise G Suite edition.
What I'm saying is that Google is already making a lot of its paid features available if you're an educational institution.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So if you just register as an educational institution, this may already be. I mean, I know, for example, at the Kendriya Vidyalaya here in IIT Powai.
Yes, sir. I belong to Kendriya Vidyalaya only. I'm from KV.
Sir, I am also from KV. We are using G Suite for education for Delhi region. And here we are having most of the features available for us. But when I asked about the breakout rooms, they just responded and they said it is available for enterprise edition. It is not available for your edition of G Suite.
Okay. Sir, on the online teaching platform, the website that you are discussing with us, in the interactive session, there are few platforms listed there. That is, one of these is Big Blue Button, which provides the breakout room at free of cost.
In Google, sir?
No. Not in Google. Big Blue Button is a separate platform.
Separate platform. Okay, sir. Yeah. Separate platform.
But it's a open source platform. If you have used Red 5 and other things for video classes.
Yes, sir.
I think MS Teams also is providing breakout rooms. MS Teams, Microsoft Teams platform is also providing very good features for conduction of classes, breakout rooms, etc.
One unfortunate problem with all these products is most of them are commercial products. So they definitely provide free facilities, and which is a welcome thing. But certain features are available only in paid versions, and certain enhanced features are available in a higher paid version. So that is how the commercial world works.
Yes.
And I think ideally we should have an open source platform. If not, we should have a platform which permits at a reasonably small investment all the facilities that we need. We chose Zoom because it permitted that facility to us at not a very exorbitant cost.
Even MS Teams, as I understand, sir, they are giving good features for educational setup.
No, we are talking only about breakout rooms. At this
Yeah. Breakout rooms also is there. That's all I have to say.
So even at the audience size 100, we can use the paid version of Zoom, which cost is around $14 per month.
Exactly. So I would actually like to bring this point up that last month actually I had an fairly extended discussion with some very senior officials in Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan where I was basically asking that why should schools not be allowed to pay fees if it's actually going to help students, if it's actually going to help online learning and all of that. And the general feedback I got from there was that it is okay. You should not presume that just because there is a fee to be paid, it will not be approved, and you should not be, and you won't be able to use it. In fact, one of the topmost officials in KV Sangathan told me that yes, if a school requests and if they can tell us exactly why they need it, it should be okay. There should not be any problem. So for all of you who are from the Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan system, if you think that having breakout rooms for your students is going to be useful, and if this requires a certain payment to be made, I would suggest please make your case to the to KV Sangathan. I don't think they're opposed to this. From my interaction with them, they said that yes, if a school indeed makes the case for it, it's okay.
In fact, I would like to extend it to even college teachers, because there is no reason why College of Engineering Pune or any other college should not be able to use it. It's a question of what is the licensing required and what is the cost. But it is definitely worth. The second point I would like to make is that just the availability of breakout rooms in a tool is not the only thing that we require. We need to properly use these breakout rooms. So I believe that you like the experience that you had, and that is because this was planned ahead of time. So if you plan ahead of time the activity, the time that you will allocate for that activity, the conclusions that are to be done, etc., then the breakout rooms become very effective. Otherwise, it is just like taking non-interested students from the main room to another breakout room where they remain non-interested, and there is nothing expected from them when they come back to the main room. This should not happen.
So if a plan is made out, I think you should write to it, and you should write to your authorities. And my interaction was that they were quite open to this. They said that the school has to make a case for it. I mean, you should be able to say how you're going to use breakout rooms, right? Or whatever other features that are available only on payment. Okay. Okay, so somebody has said it's also available on Cisco WebEx. Yeah, I'm sure it will be available. Yeah, so somebody is saying that this may not be used very productively by school students. So this is what I'm saying. I mean, if you can make a strong case for why breakout rooms would really help improve the experience, I think it can be done. I think they're not, against this idea, but they want to see a plan. I mean, what are you going to do with it? Okay. Anybody else has some when the graded assignments will be posted? So graded assignments for the second week will be posted. So Firuza, do we know exactly when they will be posted?
I can answer this. I think
Okay.
we're planning to release one on Wednesday and other on Friday. There was also a related question. Somebody had asked, what is the physical extension date of this workshop? We only announced that we'll have the next Saturday, Sunday for additional interactive live sessions. But I think somewhere we have stated that the course will end, I think 2 days or 3 days after the Sunday. And that time is primarily for the last assignment to be submitted and peer graded, so that all the assessment is over. But I don't think we expect any more work related to workshop except for completing the assignment, graded assignment, whose completion time will be beyond Sunday. So I don't remember the exact date. Supratik, do you remember the date when the course ends that we have, I think, communicated to?
6th, we have said 6th.
So 6th of January is the formal closing date of this workshop.
Yeah. But the last, interaction session where we'll be covering material is on 3rd, I think.
Yes,
Right?
that's right.
So
All right, I think we can close today's session. Thank you.
okay, yeah. So there are some questions on the chat. We will try to address those in the mails that we will send. Okay, it's 5:50 already. So thank you very much for attending today's session. We had less than full attendance today, but hopefully whatever we covered today is useful for everybody who attended. And please go through the material on your own. There are very very nicely organized tips and advice, and properly researched facts that are given there. So it is in your best interests to sort of go through those. Okay, so thank you, and I guess we will meet in the new year. Okay, so happy new year to everybody in advance.
Thank you. Same to you, sir.
Yeah.
Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.